The NBA Conference Finals has come to an end, and I gotta say, that was pretty disappointing for our conference finals. We only got to see one series go to at least 5 games, the other one getting swept, so it definitely is going to go down as one of the greatest conference finals series, but overall, it was still pretty fun. At least one of them was. So in today's video, I'm going to go over both series and what I thought about it and what to expect for the NBA Finals. But before we get into all of that, let's hear that intro. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another What's Next on Basketball YouTube video. I'm your host, as always, Jeremy. And yeah, as I said in the intro, the conference finals is finally over, and man, that really sucked as a conference final series. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm very excited to see the Celtics versus the Mavericks for the NBA Finals, but the way they went about it, this was kind of trash. Like, not as a whole playoff run for them, it really was just this round, because we had the Boston Celtics that beat the Pacers, swept them, which I don't think anyone was surprised about that. The Pacers shouldn't have been there in the first place, and no, this is not me hating as a Knicks fan. I promise I'm not as sad as you might think. I'm definitely not super angry that we lost to the Pacers and then Tyrese Halliburton decided to wear a sweater that had a certain player on it from an experience that we had as Knicks fans. I'm definitely not mad about that. But overall, it was just, it's like we knew how much of an unfair matchup it was. And then the thing surprising, though, I will say, is that I think it was like 1 or 2 games. It was actually pretty close for the Pacers. And I think that's what made it more frustrating, is that the Pacers could have been leading the series, but with so many mistakes they made, again, as a young, unexperienced team, they just couldn't get the job done. And when you have a team like the Boston Celtics that 2 years ago, they were just in the NBA Finals, of course, they're going to have that experience of how to get the job done. So because of that, they, got swept, and it is what it is on that. As for the other series, I was just very disappointed with it just because of how the Timberwolves played, with how incredible their series with the Nuggets was. I was expecting another maybe 6-7 game series, but the Timberwolves just had no answer for Luka and Kyrie. So because of that, they just didn't get the job done, and that's very disappointing as well. So I don't know, it was just one of those things that kind of sucked, because I was expecting a lot more from the Timberwolves. Of course, Anthony Edwards still did very good, but it is what it is. But of course, I'll get more into it with each one. So let's start off with the first series. So to start things off, as I said, we'll start off with the Boston Celtics versus the Indiana Pacers series. I have all the notes on my phone here. So the first thing I wrote down was, it was as I expected. I said it already like a minute or two ago. This series went as I expected, because the Pacers, as I mentioned, were a very unexperienced team, and going up against a team like the Boston Celtics, who have already been at this position, already know how to get the job done, and what it feels like to lose being in the conference finals, they obviously, we're going to get the job done. And especially with how much pressure they have for this team, because for the Boston Celtics, I think B-Souls, the YouTuber, if you guys know him, I think he said it best by saying that for this year's Boston Celtics, it's honestly a championship or bust season. Anything lower than a championship would definitely be a failure to them, because that's what this team was built for, a championship, not a conference championship, not a playoff appearance, not a second round exit, none of that. It was not even just an NBA Finals appearance. It was to go all the way and win the championship. So they got the job done easily, and once again, it was an easy path for them, which I'll get to a bit later and talk about that. So The other thing I put on here was just going back to the Pacers. It was a great season for them, even though they ended up losing the conference finals. It was still pretty fun. I feel like as a Pacers fan, you can't be nothing but happy for what this team did. They had a great start to the season, going to, I think they went to the finals, if I'm not mistaken, for the NBA in-season tournament, which was really cool to see. We got to see Tyrese Halliburton move up to the next level as a superstar. And as I told you all before, I think he could be the next point guard that we used to give the title to CP3 for. But I think it's going to start going to Tyrese just because I think he is a very good point guard. The other things we saw, of course, was the Pacers obviously going to the NBA playoffs, which was fun to see. They were able to beat the Bucks. Now, granted, the Bucks were injured, but they still got the win even against the team. So it was nice to see them go past the first round. And then in the second round, they were obviously went up against my Knicks, and they were able to beat him in 7 games. It was. They did very, very good. That was a very fun series overall. Even though the Knicks didn't win, it was still a very fun series. And then they went to the conference finals, which if I'm not mistaken, I think this was the first time they ever been to the conference finals since like 2014. I think that was when Paul George was still on the team. Yeah, but it was just pretty cool to see there. What else did I write? Like I said, Halliburton will become a great player in this league. I can't wait to see how much he does. I know next year will be another great season for him, and now having more playoff experience, we'll definitely see him try to do better and not make the same mistakes as him and the rest of his teammates did. I also wrote about Miles Turner. So for the past couple years now, there have been a lot of rumors talking about Miles Turner and if he'll get traded from the Indiana Pacers. And I think it's fair to say that those trade rumors are gone. I don't think Miles Turner's leaving. I think the Pacers have finally found a spot for him because just how great he is as a center. He can shoot the three, he can guard the paint, he has amazing blocks on players. He's just a great player overall and has finally been able to fit in the system that the Indiana Pacers have been trying to do. Because again, it was just like every single season, everyone was wondering where Miles Turner was going. There was like rumors of him going to like the Lakers, the Knicks. I think there was like at some point it was like Warriors, Kings, so many teams that people are putting together to be like, here's where Miles Turner should go. Now, there's still a possibility that he might get traded. Again, I don't think anyone is ever safe from trades unless you're like the number one guy on the team. But I think now it's a very low chance of happening. I think it'd actually be really funny if they finally trade him now after how great he did for them. But, you know, it is what it is on that. I also talked about Pascal Siakam on here in my notes. I think he's officially found his new home because, as we know, the Raptors ended up trading Pascal Siakam over to Indiana. And what did he trade or did he sign? I think he got traded, I'm pretty sure. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure he got traded because I believe I made a video on that, talking about the Pascal Siakam trade. And at first, some people were wondering if it would work out or not. I was one of those people that thought this was a great piece for the Indiana Pacers because of how great Pascal Siakam is as a player. And with him already having experience being in the NBA Finals and winning a chip, I thought that was a great veteran to have. And as you can see from their performance, that was a huge upgrade. And I think he definitely is going to have a new home here, guaranteed spot as like, I would assume he's going to be like the number 2, number 3 guy. Most likely number 2. I think he's more of a scorer than Miles Turner. It's kind of like him, Tyrese, then Turner. So yeah, overall just a good big 3 to have there. A big 3, we'll say. The last thing I put on here was just that, again, it kind of sucked that they got swept by the Celtics. I thought they could at least get 1 or 2 games against them. And again, they had the opportunities multiple times where honestly, this series could have gone 3-1 in the Pacers' favor. But they just had so many sloppy mistakes heading into like the 4th quarter and some during the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd that they just couldn't finish it. So it sucks they got swept, but hopefully this is an experience that they will learn from so then they don't make the same kind of silly mistakes again. Now, moving on to the Boston Celtics. First off, congratulations for, making it. Let's just give them a round of applause, Boston Celtics. They made it to another NBA Finals. This is the The last time they made it was 2 years ago, because I already mentioned that. It was 2 years ago when they faced off against the Warriors. Of course, we know how that ended for the Celtics, and ever since then, they have just been very hungry to go back. And they had many, many times where they could have. Like last season, we could have seen them make another finals appearance, but of course, the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler had other plans. And I would have to look back, but this must have been like the third or fourth year in a row where they did make the conference finals, which is such a huge achievement that I feel like we as NBA fans and media, well, no, the media was the ones that was really making it kind of a big deal, but I feel like as fans, we kind of just skip past that a lot just because at the end of the day, the championship that really matters is the NBA championship that you win in the NBA finals. So when teams win like the Eastern Conference or Western Conference championships, that is a big deal and it's awesome to see that, but we just kind of don't care. We're just like, all right, they won. Let's see how they do in the finals. I just feel like sometimes we just got to appreciate these teams because again, we have to look at it in their point of view. Like, yes, there's still another team they have to face, but they're the last team in their conference. There's no other Eastern Conference teams. They have solidified themselves as the best Eastern Conference team of that season. They were able to beat all the people they were able to face off against them. And again, I know there's been some controversy when it came to the Boston Celtics because people were saying how they had an easy path. Now, I'm not gonna argue with you and say they didn't. They 100% did. And I don't think that's something that is wrong. Like first round they faced it was the Miami Heat, and the Miami Heat didn't even have Jimmy Butler, so that was an easy route for them. Then they went on to face the Cavaliers, who had Jarrett Allen and Donovan Mitchell both hurt, so didn't have them for most of the series. And then they went on to face the Pacers, who ended up having Tyrese Halliburton injured. And the thing about their teams is that it's like all the star players were all hurt. And I'll say this though, at least to play devil's advocate. When it comes to the Boston Celtics, it's also kind of a like no duh type moment when it comes to them having an easy path, because that's kind of the whole point of having the first seed. Because as the first seeded team, you're supposed to have an easy route to the finals because you earned it by being the best team. So you're gonna face first round, you're automatically going to face the 8th seed, so that should already be an easy round for you. Second round, you're going to face the 4th or 5th seeded team, which should be another easy route. Now, one that should only be difficult is the conference finals because you have a chance to face either the 2nd seed or the 3rd seed, which are usually pretty even matchup. But looking at this team overall throughout the whole season, they were pretty much a force to be reckoned with. I think when it came to like the difference in games from the 1st seed and the 2nd seed in the East, the Celtics had like probably like 9-10 more games in the 2nd seed, which would have been the Knicks. And actually I could probably check for you right now how that looks. Yeah, when we look on here, it's even a bigger gap when it comes to the 1st and 2nd seed in the East. The Boston Celtics and Knicks have a 14 game gap from the Knicks reaching the 1st seed. So clearly the Boston Celtics were gonna make it this far, and I don't know if anyone really thought otherwise. Now, it was fun as teams like me, the Knicks or the Pacers, where we were like, oh, we have a chance to beat the Celtics. We can do this. But at the end of the day, they were gonna win. I predicted them going to the finals. Now, I didn't have them winning in my video, which, let me see, it's this way. You can check around here. I'm sure I'll put the video up somewhere, checking out my NBA finals predictions, which, I mean, there's really no point in watching that because my prediction for who won is they're long gone. But overall, again, I know that's been a big thing that people have been saying is how the Celtics had an easy path, which again, you're not wrong, but of course they're gonna have an easy path. They're the 1st seed. Now, next point I put on here was about B-Souls, the YouTuber, again mentioning him. I saw his video of him celebrating and stuff when the Celtics did win, so congrats to him and his team for going to the finals. If you're watching this, B-Souls, I really like you and Sage's content. I always watch your guys' podcasts and stuff. You know, if you need a guest to be on your podcast, I'm always available. And just an email. I mean, I don't think you have my number. I don't think I put it. So just an email, text on Instagram. I'm always a message away. I would always be glad to join your podcast. Yeah, self-promotion. Anyways, so let's move on to the next thing. Oh yeah, I put down on here a great series for both Jalen and Jason Tatum. And at first, I didn't realize that Jason actually had a really good series, because I always felt like it was everyone else that was helping the team win. But looking back on the stats, he had a pretty good series against the Pacers, and arguably could have won the Eastern Conference MVP, but that went to Jaylen Brown, which I think also was rightfully deserved. I thought he did phenomenal that series. But yeah, just great by both guys. They also were able to win this series without Kristaps Porzingis, because as you all know, there was news that came out after they won round 2 against the Cavaliers that Porzingis would still be missing some time, because I think he did miss some time with the Cavaliers, and they were like, oh, so he's gonna miss a couple games for the conference finals series. And little did we know that the Celtics would easily beat the Pacers, so they never really needed Porzingis and would let him rest to make an appearance for the NBA Finals. And that also is just scary to think about, how they didn't need Porzingis to win. So yeah, that's kind of scary there. I put down here again how the Celtics are back in the finals after 2 years. Good job to them. The other point I said was, will they get it done? Again, we've seen them already in the finals, and they weren't able to get the job done. They ended up losing, I believe it was 6 games to the Golden State Warriors. So now, have the Celtics been able to fix that and make sure that they will for sure win the NBA Finals this time? Again, I've said it before in many videos, this season it's the Celtics to lose. You're facing off against the 5th seeded Mavericks, which again, even though they are the 5th seed, they have been a monster to deal with throughout this whole playoff series. We were able to beat the Clippers, which honestly shocked a lot of people. Not many people actually thought the Clippers were going to beat the Mavericks, which I don't know why you would think that. The Clippers are trash. But then they would go on to face, who was round 2? Round 2 was... round 2 was the Oklahoma City Thunder, which I had actually predicted the Mavericks in beating, which was a very hot take and no one thought was going to happen, and it did happen. And I think that was another 6 or 7 game series. Then they went on to face the Timberwolves and absolutely destroyed them, beating them in 5 games, which was a shock to everybody, and I'll talk more about that in a second. And then now they're going to face the Boston Celtics, and they just been a really big force in this entire playoff run, with Luka and Kyrie being the best duo we've seen in a long time. Potentially could be one of the greatest if they win the championship. So I'm very interested to see how Jason, Jalen, Porzingis, Derek, Drew Holiday, how the 5-headed dragon of the Celtics that I gave them the name of, how they're going to do against this team. Now, on paper, it seems like the Celtics should win this, but I'm very interested to see how this goes. But that's all I really have to say about this series, so let's move on to the next one. Alright, so the last series we will talk about in this video is the Dallas Mavericks versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. And this series, as I said, was... I apologize if you hear my neighbors outside. Sounds like they're riding a bike. But back to what I was saying. This series was just very disappointing, as I already said, because I feel like there was so much more we could have gotten from it. And again, it was just an absolute shock to everyone. No one thought the Mavericks were going to easily destroy the Timberwolves. Everyone, even myself included, thought that the Timberwolves were going to beat the Mavericks and we were going to see a Timberwolves and Celtics series. Of course, that didn't happen. And because of that, now we got to talk about the Mavericks winning. So first things I wrote on here, we'll just talk about the Timberwolves to get them out of the way. The Timberwolves, again, as I said, couldn't stop Kyrie or Luka. They had no answer for them. No matter how many times they tried to stop Luka and Kyrie, they weren't really able to stop them. They were able to sometimes slow them down, mainly Kyrie, because Luka was able to just do basically whatever he wanted with that team. Especially, it was like game 2 or 3. Luka hit a buzzer beater shot after like making Rudy Gobert go on ice skates. It was pretty funny to watch. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it. The other thing I wrote on here was, besides game 5, The series was pretty close overall. Each game was at least a 5-point difference when the game would end. Again, game 5 was different because at that point, I think the Timberwolves were basically just drained and tired from, because again, they were just in a 7-game series with the Nuggets, and that definitely took a lot out of them. I think that's another big thing when it came to the Pacers as well. I think they were also kind of drained. Again, I know it's not really an excuse you want to make, because again, if you're playing on the court, you gotta play no matter what you're going through, and it's not really a good reason. But again, I'm pretty sure that was a big factor in that, because it's just hard after playing a 7-game series. They couldn't come back from a 3-0 lead. They were able to win 1 game, but that was about it. I was actually kind of rooting for the Timberwolves to come back from a 3-0 lead, just because that would really help Anthony Edwards' legacy and becoming one of the best players. I also wrote down here about, speaking of Anthony Edwards, this doesn't really change how I feel about Anthony Edwards, because again, I know the big topic and the story putting around him was that he might be the next Michael Jordan with how phenomenal he was playing throughout this playoff run of his. I still think that's something he could do. I think Anthony Edwards, when his career is said and done, he will be up there as one of the greatest players we've ever seen. And I think about the greatest players we've ever seen is that each one of them, whether it was 1, 2, or even 5 times, we've seen them have their lows. And this is one of Edwards' lows when it comes to his career. And I have no doubt that he'll be able to change this and bounce back immediately. I also put on here how I honestly don't know what the Timberwolves need to change for next season. I thought their team overall was honestly perfect and was a championship contending team. I don't know if it's just one of those things where some players just have to work on something for them to be at that next level. Maybe they could trade a player or two. I'm not sure who they would trade and who they would add, but I'm sure the franchise will figure it out on their own of, exactly what to do. The next thing I put on here was Cat and Gobert couldn't help when it mattered the most. They had a lot of games where they did phenomenal job by those two. They did a lot better than I thought they were going to do in this playoff run, and I still think they changed the narrative when it comes to those two. Now, I know they didn't get the job done when it really mattered, but as a whole for the playoff run, as I already said, they did pretty good. And that's really all I have to say about the Timberwolves. It just sucked how this is how their season had to end, but I'm sure this will not be the last time we see them in the conference finals, and maybe one day we'll see them in the NBA finals. Now let's move on to the Mavericks. Again, this is a pretty short one because I didn't have much to say about this series. We'll first congratulate the Mavericks. You guys are going on to the NBA finals, which will be the 3rd or 4th time in your franchise's career. Of course, we know that it was 13, 14? No, it would be 13 years ago. The Mavericks won a championship with Dirk Nowitzki, and that was a pretty cool moment. Now they have a chance of another European player to win a championship and to, once again face all the odds that no one would have expected. For one point to put down on here was about Luka and showing why he's one of the best players in the league right now. I told you guys many times, Luka is one of my favorite players in the league right now. And he just keeps showing why he's the best. He's just casually dropping triple doubles like he's Nikola Jokic every game. He's doing incredible shots. He's getting 30, 40 points a night. It's just great to see by him. I also put down how Kyrie and Luka is one of the best duos I've ever seen in the NBA. It's crazy to think how when Kyrie did get traded to the Dallas Mavericks, we at first thought this really wasn't going to be a good pairing. We thought it couldn't work out. We were like, how are two ball dominant players that like Luka and Kyrie going to work together? And they proved us wrong. They were able to make it work and make it work. I wouldn't even say they made it work. They made this just a phenomenal duo with these two, something we never would have thought of even happening. And it's just nice to see there. I also wrote down how this will be Luka's first NBA finals. So I'm sure Luka's very excited for that. This will be his first time going there, seeing how it is, and potentially winning an NBA championship. So I can't wait to see what he does and, the performance he'll be showing us. And of course, not only about Luka, but Kyrie as well. Kyrie is finally going back to the NBA finals. The last time he was really in the NBA finals was when he was with the Cavaliers. alongside LeBron, and he did win a championship already before, back in 2016. And I'm sure Kyrie's really wanting to win another one. This would be his second championship if he does win it with Luka. And honestly, it would just be nice, for Kyrie to finally win a championship without LeBron. I feel like that's still a conversation people talk about with Kyrie, is that he can't win without LeBron. So hopefully he can get that agenda off of him. Again, a great team overall. This is a phenomenal team when it comes to Dallas Mavericks. Besides Luka and Kyrie, you have Derek Lively, Derek Jones Jr., Tim Hardaway Jr., Daniel Gafford, what's his name? I think it's like Jalen Hardy, something like that. Let me look it up right now for you guys. I'll look at the roster because I always forget their names. Let me see here. Yeah, like Josh Green had some pretty good moments. Jalen Hardy, yep. Maxi Kelber, Dwight Powell actually had some good moments, surprising or not. PJ Washington was phenomenal, and that's really the only ones I see that I really noticed throughout the game. I know like Greg Brown had some moments, but not that many. But overall, it's just been a great team to watch. The next thing I have on here is that Jason Kidd has shown to be a phenomenal coach. I just like how he's been coaching this team overall. There was a moment in the game where the announcers, I forget who was announcing the game and talking through it as one of the broadcasters, but they had mentioned how Jason Kidd, when it's timeout and he's talking to the players, he doesn't talk like a regular coach where he's like, he wants you to do this play because that's what it says in the books. He wants you to do a play that he thinks he would have done if he was still playing. Because in case for those of you that for some reason don't know, Jason Kidd used to play in the NBA, and funny enough, he actually won a championship with the Dallas Mavericks and now has a chance to win one as a coach. And I think that must, for Jason Kidd, that must be really a cool experience, because it's like to have the opportunity to win a championship for the team to help you win your first one, and now you're going to help Luka win his first one. I think that's a really cool moment for him and an experience I'm sure he'll never forget, whether they win or lose. Second to last point I put on here is how the series will be another tough one for them. Throughout this whole playoff run for the Mavericks, they've just had tough opponent after tough opponent, and the Celtics will definitely be the final boss for them. Again, I called them the five-headed dragon for a reason. It's gonna be a tough one, but the Mavericks, it's not like they haven't experienced this before, so I'm very interested to see how they can shut this team down. And last point I put on here is, as I already mentioned earlier in the video, I'm going to be rooting for the Mavericks, as, once again, Luka's my favorite player, so of course I'm going to root for him. I'm excited to see him win his first championship, and I just can't wait to see how that goes down. But that's really going to be the end of this video, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, just to talk about the elephant in the room, because I did put it in my community post. Again, I apologize for not being able to do the videos on the round 2 of the NBA semifinals. It was a very busy week for me, I'll say, in my personal life. Again, nothing bad, like nothing's wrong with me health-wise or anything. It was just very busy, so I just had no time to get the video done. And I just felt like it had been too long since the round 2 ended, and we were already like 3 games into the conference finals. So I was like, I'm just going to focus on the conference finals and get this video done. And yeah, now I did that. I have one more video that I'm going to try to bring out before the finals happens, which is going to be in 3 days, because it's June 3rd as of me recording. So it's 3 days until the NBA Finals, so I'm going to try to get one more video out about the NBA Finals before it comes out. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Again, as always, I appreciate you guys. I thank you all for subscribing. I know my one video about which NBA cities should be a part of the expansion draft, I know has recently been getting some views, so I appreciate you guys still watching my old videos and stuff like that. Of course, I know that video is definitely one of my best. I think it's actually the best. It has like 39.2K, something like that. So I appreciate you all for watching that. I always appreciate you guys' comments and likes and sharing my videos to other people. we are on the road to 500 subscribers. As I told you all, it was either before the summer or during the summer, and now it's June. So before the summer ends, I would like to get past 500 subscribers. So please, please, please share this video with others. I don't care who it is, even if they're not a basketball fan, just tell them to subscribe just because. But without further ado, this is the What's Next on Basketball YouTube channel. I am your host as always, Jeremy, and I'm signing off for the day. Have a great day, everybody.